The next thing I want to talk about is I want to talk about some of the issues associated with offers and compromises. So the first issue I want to discuss is what we call dissipated assets. A dissipated asset is an asset that the taxpayer has disposed of that the IRS is going to count towards their reasonable collection potential or their minimum offer and compromise. So for example, this happens all the time. People will liquidate their IRAs and they will go out and spend money and on all sorts of things. They'll blow it on vacations or trips or food or whatever. And the IRS will come back and they'll say, wait, you had $100,000 in this IRA. What happened to the money? And the taxpayer will throw their hands up and go, I don't know. We spent it. And the IRS goes, you know what? That $100,000 is money that should have been used to pay your tax liability. So we're going to consider this a dissipated asset. Dissipated assets come up all the time with property. They come up with IRAs and securities. And basically, you need to be able to substantiate to the IRS that the money that was used with any dissipated assets was spent on ordinary and necessary living expenses or other things that the IRS was willing to accept. So it's really important at the outset to identify any dissipated asset issues that you might have. Otherwise, you might get all the way through the offer and compromised only to be disappointed at the end. The next issue I want to talk about is valuation. So valuation is a really hot topic within the IRS. And it's something that practitioners use all the time to present the client's financials in the best light possible. So one of the examples I'll give is with a house. You have a house and you go on Zillow and the house is worth $500,000. And then you go on the property tax county assessor's website and the tax assessor says it's worth $350,000. And then you go to the taxpayer's insurance and the insurance says it's worth $450,000. Well, now you're creating a genuine dispute as to what the property is really worth. And there are different ways of looking at valuation issues. And the IRS will consider valuation issues based on a number of things. So when valuing assets, it's always important to take the valuation that is most beneficial towards the client or the taxpayer, because valuation is something that it can be challenged by the IRS, but if you provide a value to the IRS and you provide backup of the value of the IRS, it is up to the IRS to refute that value. They will do it in extreme circumstances. I mean, don't get me wrong. If you list an asset for far lower than what the IRS feels the fair market value is, they will come back and challenge your valuation. But in most cases, if you have a credible and reasonable explanation for how you arrived at your valuation. So for example, if you KBB a car and that car is worth 10 grand, but your car has a big old dent in the side of it, then that car is ultimately worth less than what the KBB value is. And if you can explain that to the IRS or provide some sort of explanation to them, that's one way to avoid that issue. The final issue I want to talk about is what we call future income potential. And this has been kind of a catch-all provision with the IRS to screen out offers and compromises in the past. They are less aggressive about it than they were a few years ago, but they still use it. So let's say I have a client who is a physician, and they've been earning $300,000, $400,000 a year. All of a sudden that physician is unemployed. If the physician is unemployed, even for an extended period of time, the IRS they're not making any income, they have no positive cash flow. The IRS is still going to make the argument that they have the ability to go out and earn more money. And because that potential for future income exists, this happens all the time with businesses, by the way. Because the potential for future income exists, the IRS will not accept the offer because they believe that they will eventually be able to go out and collect that money from the taxpayer. They'll be able to collect more money than the taxpayer is offering in their offer. So with respect to future income potential, you want to paint circumstances for the IRS that would defeat future income potential. The best time to do this is when initially submitting your offer. The taxpayer or the representative has a chance to craft an offer statement. And that statement can be used to mitigate any belief from the offer specialist that the taxpayer has the ability to go out and earn money. It happens all the time with people who are lawyers or who hold advanced degrees. Those offers can be particularly difficult to get accepted if the IRS thinks your job prospects are great. So by painting the picture that you haven't been able to find a job, that will increase the chance of mitigating your future income potential.